Welcome to my new trailer. Just got it very cheap. It has several issues that we'll go through as we get to them. First of them is the planks are very warped and uneven. All the screws are rusted in, and so first I have to get things off of it so that I can sand the bare metal and repaint it all, because you got to start with something that's not going to fall apart before you build it. I ended up having to get a sledgehammer and show it who's boss. The other issue I have to deal with is limited space. The camera is actually sitting on my truck, so that's how close it is, and I wasn't able to swing without hitting something, but it worked. I was able to get a few of the screws out with my drill, but I really couldn't get very many of them out. I ended up cutting the planks with my saw in order to get them off, and then I used a sledgehammer and just whacked them and broke them off. So that's how I did that. The next day I tried unscrewing it still, but it was pretty obvious I couldn't, so I did the saw, adjusted it so I didn't cut the metal frame, and went from there, and everything came off really, really easily that way. After I cut all the wood, obviously some of the screws were still holding it on. I just used a sledgehammer to whack them off the frame and break off the screws. This turned out to be so much more rewarding. I was able to get everything done really quickly. And mind you, when I started this whole project, it was over 100 degrees pretty much every day, so it was kind of grueling. You can clearly see I started in the shade. That was when I worked. After getting the planks off, I used a sledgehammer to get all the screws knocked out. Then I sanded the frame and painted it. Didn't really need to be primered. It had several coats of paint already on it. It had been a boat trailer, and then it was reconfigured with iron and pretty solid. One of the issues that did pop up that I wasn't aware of until after I got everything off of the frame and I was sitting and contemplating my next move, I noticed that the tongue was crooked and the wheels didn't line up square with the frame. Only slightly, but clearly it was a problem. I had driven it home and there wasn't an issue with it, the way it pulled. So I was just going for it. After I got the frame all sanded and painted, I went and got my materials, and then I started working on the poor man's fiberglass for the undercoating of the plywood that was going to be on the frame. I did Type Bond 2, painter's cloth, and I did 2 coats, and then I completely painted over that with truck bed liner. This is going to be the underside of the camper, and so I wanted it to be really good and waterproof and nice and solid. Because the issue of the trailer not being completely square, I decided to make my camper removable. After I got the plywood on the frame and got it squared up, I painted the whole thing with Type Bond 2 just to add some extra waterproofing, and had to screw it from underneath, which wasn't that easy, but it was dry. Weather's starting to turn. Obviously, you can see I put my covers up because it's gonna rain. There was another issue. On each side of this frame, there are 3 hooks to use as tie downs, and those hooks stuck up about 1 inch above the frame. So I had to make notches in the floor so those hooks could sit inside the frame, and then I could use them as a tie down on the frame later on. I am really familiar with construction as far as woodworking goes, but coming to the Foamie, my goal is to be light, but it's really hard to let go of wood construction when that's what you're familiar with. And I just could not believe that a foam floor would be strong enough. One of the things you don't see is the fact that I stand around a lot and just look at it. I don't have any plans. This is the slot that I made in my floor so that I could put that hook through it. This is a top view. Stuck through the floor. And there's my insulation and my framing. Like I said, I did actually go back in and reinforce some of the places that stuck out because I want to be able to lift the whole thing up off the frame if I need to. It's really important when you're putting the foam in the sections of board between the boards to use expanding foam to seal the gaps, and I forgot all about that and put my screws in the subfloor and started building on top of it, and by then I was too far in to go back and undo and redo. But I am more careful with everything else that I'm doing now. So this is my first video, and like and subscribe and stay tuned. There'll be more.